Hello, good evening. It's Cheryl here. I've come in a little early because I just want to make sure that you can hear and see me okay. As soon as it pops up on my phone and I can see that or hear that you can hear me, then we're good. Just want to make sure that you can hear and see that. Excellent, that's good. We're all good to go. That's wonderful. So, golly, it's 2 weeks before Christmas. That's amazing, isn't it? um, that those few weeks in December, just when you think you have so much time, just really flies. Let me get my phone out the way there now that I know that all is well, and we just have a minute or so to go before we really start. Um, this is week 6 of our festive knits. And it's been fun to do. We'll have another one next week before Christmas itself, and then I'll be taking a couple of weeks off and we'll return, all being well, in the new year. So I hope you're all well tonight. It's beautifully cold and crisp in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so I hope the weather is treating you well. I know it's been bad across the country and in the UK where many of my friends are. Anyway, it is now 7 p.m, so welcome indeed to Knit Matters. This is season 4, episode 16, and it's week 6 of our festive knits. I'm Cheryl Lampard. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're watching live now on Facebook or you are watching the replay afterwards. I do appreciate you being here. I'm a fibre artist, I'm a knitting instructor, I'm a Craft Yarn Council certified instructor. I used to have the great pleasure of being a yarn store owner, and I used to love being able to teach people how to knit. I loved it then and I love it now. Before we start on the project for this week 6 of our festive knit series, can you believe that? Week 6, we're already there. I wanted to let you know that the pattern for the plaid baubles from week 4, which is season 4, episode 14, but it was week 4 in our festive knits, is now posted on the Knit Matters page. It's in a JPEG format because the Facebook's page settings for the Knit Matters page, for whatever reason, don't allow me to post it as a PDF. So feel free to save or print off that JPEG, just as you would any other photo that comes up, an image. Feel free to print that or save it, and it is a 3-page JPEG. You'll need all 3 pages for the pattern for your own personal use. If you would like it as a PDF, just message me or email me, cheryl@knittermatters.com. You can let me know that you would like it in the thread below, but please, for your own security, don't put your email in the Facebook thread below this video. Just private message me that or email me. Right, so each week we've done different things in our festive series, and mainly it's been ornaments or decorations, other than the gift card holder that we did in week 1. So I thought it a good idea to make a decorative and useful gift this time for a knitter, and this is what I've come up with. Ooh, like a photo frame, isn't it? Anyway, you'll be able to see it when it's on the worktop in a minute, but what I've done is I've kind of knitted around a florist's foam ring. That's really hard to say. Then I've added things. I'm sorry, the lights are bouncing off these baubles, but I've added these transparent decorations, which are really inexpensive, and I've filled them with stitch markers and locking stitch markers, and then I've got a sort of ornament here, which is actually a yarn cutter. It's a sort of handy thing for a knitter to have, and then I've put some knitting needles there. It doesn't yet have a hanger, but that can be done later. Anyway, let me switch to the worktop and we'll talk about it in greater detail, and I'll show you how it's done. It's going to clonk a bit as I put it down with all these bits and bobs. There, I think you can see a bit more clearly there, the stitch markers, the locking stitch markers, and this little yarn cutter. So it's a safe way of sort of having this in your knitting bag or your knitting box, whatever you have, without always hunting for scissors. And I've just finished it off with some knitting needles. I've used many of us who knit have knitting friends and family members to share this wonderful fibre art with. So it would make a great gift for any of those people. But even if you don't have a sort of an army of knitting friends and family, why not make it for yourself anyway? It'd be really cool hanging up in, on a door, or, it's a really nice thing, and it's very different to the things that you can buy. So, as I said, I've used a foam, oh, that's so hard to say, a foam florist ring. This size was the number 12 size. It's 1.7 inches, I guess, diameter, and 11.7 inches across. I've used a fleecy jumbo yarn. Where did that go? Oh yes, okay. I've used a fleecy jumbo yarn, which is really it's a blanket yarn. It's a number 7 weight. Now it doesn't have to be this yarn, but you do want something of the similar weight. It's the jumbo weight. It doesn't refer to the physical weight of the yarn, it's the type of yarn that you're using. We generally, for most of our ornaments and decorations, we've used a medium weight yarn of a 4. This is a 7. It doesn't have to be this, but you do want something bulky. A roving yarn or a wool roving would be really good too. That sort of unspun, unfinished yarn. That was actually what I was looking for, but I couldn't find it in the last few days. I have knitted this with a circular needle. The ball band for this particular yarn suggests that you use a US 17, which is a 12.75 millimeter. I actually used a US 19, which is a 15 millimeter, as I happen to have it. I rarely knit with huge needles. I don't find it comfortable, and it's not what I do for most of my projects. But anything that's, you can vary the size. Just use a needle size with the yarn that works with the yarn that you're going to be using for this. Now, I said a circular needle. We're not going to be knitting in the round, but I do recommend a circular needle because the yarn thickness takes up a lot of room on the needle, and you just won't be able to fit it on a straight needle. I've got something like 15 stitches on this piece that I'm going to use to demo in a minute, and it would take up the whole length of a straight needle pretty much. Now, I actually couldn't find a white foam ring in this size. I've got them in a smaller size, but I bought the green one. That's all they had. I think everybody's been buying wreaths, and I didn't have time to order it online. So it would have been better with white underneath, but then again, I kind of like this. I think the stitches is like sort of footprints in the snow, and then those little darker patches are sort of the divots that you sometimes get. But if you don't like that idea, then just get a white one, assuming you're going to knit white for your snowy wreath. Of course, you can knit any colour you want. I just chose white for this one. Now, for this size wreath, I cast on 42 stitches. Now, I used a it's called a knit-on cast on. Sorry, I lost the word there. I couldn't remember what it was called. It's called a knit-on cast on. It's the simplest cast on, and one that we've probably all done. I tend not to use it very much because it gives a loopy edge. But in this instance, well, we can benefit from that loopy edge. So I'm casting on. You can do it with or without a slip knot. I just want to show you the cast on. So this knit on cast on, as it's called, is, I think many of us probably learnt this when we first learnt to knit. So we're just literally going along like this. We're not putting the yarn through the stitches. We're not putting it through like a cable cast on. The cable cast on I like as a nice edge. We're doing this simple knit on. I don't know why it's called knit on, but I suppose it's because you are just knitting on and on. So you're literally going into the stitch that you've just placed on the left hand needle. As I said, I don't normally like this because when you start to knit you get a loopiness at the bottom, but we're going to be we're going to be glad of that loopiness a bit later on. So let me put that to one side because I need to come back to that later. Okay, so for a smaller wreath, which is what I'm going to demo on because it's going to be a bit unwieldy otherwise, you need fewer stitches. Now, I can't give you exact numbers, but for this size, which is, if I bring this one in, I can't remember exactly the size of this one, but as you can see, it's a tad smaller. The I guess I think I would need about 30 to 32 stitches for that instead of the 42 that I use for the larger one. You might have to just try it and see. When you cast on with this sort of really bulky yarn, you tend to think it's not going to go so far, but once you start sort of laying it round the ring, you'll find that it actually goes further than you think. For instance, this sample, which I'm going to be using in a minute, it's 15 stitches, and you can see that that's almost covering half my foam ring there. So that's why I say my guess would be, you know, if I did 30 stitches, maybe 31 or 32, that would adequately fit this wreath. But you will have to just test that out depending on your yarn and your needle size. What I did was worked 9 rows in stockinette stitch, and I didn't bind off. I'm going to show you 2 ways of finishing off your wreath, and you can, if you wish. I use the knit side for my wreath, but I did toy with using the wrong side because it gave a nice kind of bubbly texture. I particularly liked it in the white. You can see it kind of gives you a really nice, interesting texture. So you can certainly use that if you prefer. I just chose to use the knit side of it. And what I did here, I knitted, I kept checking it sort of, I'd cast on my stitches, and then I kept checking sort of how much I needed to wrap round my ring, leaving enough so I could sort of fasten it in some way. And I didn't bind it off. I worked 9 rows in stockinette stitch, and I didn't bind off because I wanted to knit along my cast on edge as I bound off. It's almost like a 3 needle bind off, which we've done, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I will say in advance, it's going to look a bit awkward on the table because I did this, I found it easier to do it sort of sitting on with it perched between my knees on my lap, and then I was able to kind of manipulate it as I went along. But we'll give it a go. We're all for giving things a go on Knit and Matters. So I want to get this in a position. I hope this will, here we go, to see. It's a bit tricky, this. Okay. It's a bit tricky. I'm going to lay this out. I think I am going to go with the wrong side facing, so you can see what that looks like. That might be fun to do that on this one. So just so that you can see how that looks. So I want to get my, I'll get there in a minute. I want to show you. I'm going to need another needle, I think, which I need to just stand up and get. So our loopy cast on, normally I would hate that, but here we want this because we're going to be working into this edge. Let me just see. It is a bit fiddly until you get the hang of it. Bear with me, I just need to get another needle because I'm going to need a 3rd one, and it needs to be of a specific thickness. Here we go. Different size again, but this is where having 3 hands is particularly useful. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I've cut this stuff here, I will say this stuff is like knitting with a bath towel or a bathrobe. I don't find it particularly pleasant, but then I don't really like knitting with bulky needles. But you know, I know people make blankets with this type of yarn and they love using it, so whatever works for you. Okay, so what I want to do is kind of, instead of, I would normally be using this on the purl, so I'm going to be knitting with this. So I want to get my yarn to the end of the needle, and I'm going to be kind of using fingers for this as well. So I hope you can see that okay. I'll do a few stitches and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. At this point, it doesn't matter that you're going to be using a smaller needle, but the important thing is that you're binding your edge around your foam ring. So it's easier with a smaller needle. So I'm going to be taking this through here, then that's stitched off the needle. Okay, so I've got one stitch now on my needle. I'm going to be doing the same thing, going to be pushing that up. I've got that next stitch, the live stitch, is on I've just put my right hand needle through, and I'm going to be looking for that corresponding loop the other side. Okay, that's why those loops are kind of handy here. Without that falling off, going to knit that stitch and through to that one. So now I have 2 stitches on my right needle, and I'm just going to kind of bind off in what I would say is a normal way. This is where it gets a bit tricky, but we can do it. There we go. Once you've done got a few wrapped round your foam ring, it gets a lot easier. So let's have a few more. This one, knit through, going to pick up the corresponding loop. When I say corresponding loop, I mean obviously the loop that would be the next stitch. There it is. Put that on my needle. So I'm doing kind of a 3 needle and finger bind off here, which isn't a real stitch, but it'll do for our purposes now. Get that off. Okay. Oh, golly. It's like knitting with broom handles. Never mind. We can do it. And we keep going. Next stitch. There we go. I do like the edge that this gives us. See, it's getting easier now that I've got a few stitches, a bit of hem going along. Oh, golly. Gonna work out with my fingers tonight. Okay, so I can see now where my loops are. My hem. Let's keep going for a little bit longer. It is much easier, as I say, once you get a few on, because you haven't got to manhandle and worry about something falling off. Right, that one. I did it last night. I was practicing or having a go with it, and my foam ring suddenly shot off my lap and went flying across the room. So that was a surprise for my husband, and indeed for me. Okay, we're getting there. I hope you could see that okay. I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'll show you another way to do it, and then you can do whichever way you think is better. So find that loop, the next loop, not that one, we've just gone into that one, so this one is the one we need for this stitch. Knit there through that, grab that, knit that stitch and the one on the needle, and pull that over. As I say, I found it easier to sort of have it on my lap, but you get the idea. Okay, one more, and then I'll show you the other way to do it. There we go. Oh, I will do one more, and then I'll show you what that ridge looks like. Next loop, there we go. Oh, it's going to work out for the fingers. Okay, so now you can see, let me pull that out so it doesn't unravel. Actually, this stuff is quite hard to unravel if you need to, so, but it can be done. So you can see there that I've got really quite a nice sort of finish there with that ridge, and if you prefer that textured size, by all means use the wrong size. It does look good in the white, although, you know, you can use whatever you like. I did play with moving the ridge round to the top edge, but I didn't like that because then this becomes less clean looking. This becomes a bit pinched and pulled because there's more fabric here. Or it's a bit scrunched up, I should say. So it's not as clean as having that seam on that inner edge. I think that really finishes it off nicely. Okay, so you'd go around and do the whole thing with your doing it like that. Let me show you the other way to do it. Oh, I should have done this with white, shouldn't I? That would have been smart to do that with white. Sorry. But I think you could see what I was doing there. Okay, let me show you now what to do with the other way to do it. And I'm going to show you the other side of the ring. I'm just going to pull this needle out because it's going to clonk against the table all the time, drive everybody mad, and I don't want to do that. And I will do it with white this time, but I have to do it with a thinner yarn. Okay, so the other piece that I've done, the other way to do it is simply do exactly what we did before. Cast on using the knit on cast on, and instead of doing 9 rows, do 8 rows and then bind off. Don't make that bind off too tight nor too loose. You want it almost so that you get a bit of curve with your length of knitting, because that's going to fit nicely around the ring then. So your cast on edge is this one and your bound off edge is that one. So neither make that too loose or too tight. We want it snug, we want it taut but not tight, because there's absolutely no stretch in this type of yarn. The only stretch is in the knitting, and on a cast off and bind off there really isn't any stretch. So this time I will do it the other way round so you can see what both sides look like. And I'm going to cut that so it's not in the way all the time and not in your view. Okay, so I wonder if I have another ring there. That's probably going to be easier. Let me show you on a second. I've got that to be easier, I think. Then you haven't got something else flapping away in the background. Still got the labels on this one. Drop the ring. Ah. Right. So that's easier, then I don't have to worry about the other piece getting in the way. So what I'm going to do here is simply sew it. Now, you're never going to be able to sew with this. Well, if you can, you're a better woman than me. I shouldn't say you're never going to be able to sew with this. You will be able to sew with this, but it will be very tricky, and threading the needle itself, the sewing needle, is going to be something of a challenge. So what I suggest is that you sew with just a thicker yarn, nothing as thick as this, or 2 lengths of a thinner yarn together. It would be a matching colour, obviously, but I want you to see what I'm doing. So again, just assume that this is slightly thicker. It's the only thing I find that was a good contrast colour that was relatively, that would do. So really all I'm going to do, if you want to, you do want to maintain that nice kind of edge, that sort of pinched edge. So I would literally just start off by, that's what I've got to be careful of. I pulled that and it's going to come out. So you don't have to be too neat. It's not a garment. We're not trying to do an invisible seam, because your stitches are just going to disappear in this fluffy stuff or your roving yarn anyway. So I would just use that cast off edge, that bound off edge, as a feature sort of thing. And then again, you know, sew around this, pull it up nice and tight. Apologise for not knitting the other one, the other finishing off, binding off, fastening that off in a contrast. I had a piece cut there and then forgot all about it, so I do apologise for that, but I hope you could see what I was doing. So I'm just sort of stabbing through. It's a wreath, it's not a garment, it doesn't have to be pretty. Literally, you can hardly see my stitches there. So even if you can't find a matching yarn colour exactly, find the nearest thing, you won't see your stitches. I mean, it's going to be a bit trickier if you're using white, but again, you could use a pale grey, you could use something, or you could actually do it if you want a contrast. There we go. So that's the other way to do it. This is possibly easier for a lot of people, but you could try both ways. Okay, I'll just do a few more stitches, keeping an eye on the time. And of course, once all this is done, you can start decorating with items suitable for your recipient. You could make something similar for somebody who crochets, or somebody who sews, an embroiderer, any, you know, just theme the tools that you put on there to what's appropriate for what they like to do. Or you could, you know, with items for their particular craft. So it could be a couple of crochet hooks, it could be some yarn. Again, you could still have sewing needles, whatever you, a yarn cutter, whatever you think would be nice for that person, whatever their particular interest or craft is. Or you could make it completely decorative. Okay, I think I've done enough there for you to see how that fastens round. And it works pretty well. Okay, so you've still got a nice ridge as we have with this one. I think possibly the needle bind off, needle finger and extra needle bind off is a little neater in many ways, because you've got one cast on ridge and then your bind off completes it. With this, you've got a bind off edge and you've got a cast on edge, so it will come out a little bit thicker, but it's still nice and it still gives you, you know, a nice sort of clean edge inside the ring. But this is where you can have some fun. You could use, to finish it off, you could use some, let me show you on the white. You could use, you know, little balls of yarn if you want to. These are little sort of miniature balls of yarn that I've used for demonstrating colour, and you can buy them in craft stores, but they're kind of cute, and you could fix those somewhere. You could use the holly leaves that we've done before. All sorts of things you could use. If it's for somebody who sews, you could put cotton reels, little cotton reels, tape measures, whatever. It really does make a very nice personalised gift. And oh yes, you could even, for that sewer, knitter, crocheter in your life, you could even, on this, you could even pop on the gift card holder that we did in week 1 somewhere. We could, hang on, I'm trying to get, oh, I need to lay that down a bit better. You could have that somewhere, or, you know, have that almost as the hanging loop. If I switch back to the main screen, that would be better for you to see there. You could hang that up, and that could be a gift card to their favourite yarn store. or a fabric store. That would be a super nice gift for somebody. So whatever you want to do with that, it's a lovely personalised gift, and I think anybody that is a crafter or a knitter or a sewer, they would be extremely pleased to receive something like that, knowing that you made it just for them. I think it's a lovely gift. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you're thinking now about who you could make it for. So do feel free to message me. It's cheryl@knittermatters.com, if you have questions on this episode or any other episode. Now, if you're watching the replay on Knitter Matters on the YouTube channel, if you're watching the replay on Knitter Matters YouTube channel, which is the best way to watch the replay, because it's fine to watch it as soon as it's been done on the Knitter Matters page, and I love you to do that and ask me any questions. But when it gets to be a lot of them, it's harder to find it on the Facebook page. So on our YouTube channel, they're all listed, and I do have complete lists of the playlists if you're searching for something and you don't know which episodes it's in, because there's over 100 videos there now on the channel. So that is the easiest way to watch it, and if you like Knitter Matters, do let us know. And you can also subscribe to Knitter Matters channel, and all that means is that you'll get every episode that's published straight away in your feed. You won't have to keep constantly going to it. If you do ask me any questions on YouTube, and you please do, it doesn't message me, it doesn't flag up a notification when you've done that. So if you don't hear back from me in a day or so, please don't think that I'm ignoring you. It's just that I won't have seen it. But in that case, if you haven't had a reply and you need one more promptly, just email me or message me and I'll be sure to check it. So this week was week 6 of our Festive Knit series, and it's season 4, episode 16. Next week we'll be back, all being well, and it'll be the last Festive Knit before Christmas. So I do hope you join me for that. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and keep well, keep calm, and keep knitting. Bye for now.